My name is Richard Heideman, and I have the privilege of serving as president of the American Zionist Movement. Thank you very much. On behalf of the 29 member and affiliate and Zionist youth organizations that make up the family of the American Zionist Movement, we're indeed so pleased and proud to be here at Park East. And we're only here at Park East because the esteemed rabbi, the great rabbi, the rabbi who is wise and wonderful and welcoming, made sure to let the American Zionist Movement know that we are welcome in his home. Please welcome Rabbi Arthur Schneier, Park East Synagogue.
Bruchim habayim. Welcome to Park East Synagogue, the Zionist congregation. I repeat, the Zionist congregation. And we're proud of it. We're proud of it. I want to thank you, Richard, for this family reunion. It's a family reunion of top leadership of the Zionist movement of the past. And I speak to you as a former president of the Religious Zionists of America. I speak to you as a former vice president under Seymour Reich, American Zionist Federation. And then to see my friend Julie Berman, Claims Conference, President's Conference. What a wonderful reunion. Great to have you here, all of you. And I want to especially single out the gifted link between Israel and the American New York Jewish community, the Consul General, Dani Dayan. And you know, you think that Dani is only preoccupied with New York and New York Jewry. We stood together in Pittsburgh after 9/11. He was there. He was there. Never to be forgotten, Dani. Your Excellencies, and let's warmly welcome the two ambassadors, Slovenia, South Sudan. And regrettably, we live at a time when we do have to have an envoy of the president to monitor anti-Semitism. His first appearance in New York. I'd like him to please rise. Let's give him a warm welcome. Elon Carr. He sure has his hands full. But I don't want to talk to you about I don't want to talk to you as a Zionist. I want to talk to you today about Arthur Schneier as a Holocaust survivor. Holocaust survivor. And I must tell you, after the war, 1945, the DP camps, we didn't know where to go. We were DPs, displaced. And finally, we lived to see the rebirth of Medinat Israel. And after the war, anti-Semitism that resulted in the Holocaust was like a cancer in remission. It was there, but a cancer in remission. And now, sadly enough, it has metastasized. Metastasized and widespread in Europe. And then regrettably, we thought it was only Europe. To me, as a Holocaust survivor, this last Wednesday was a black day, a dark day. I never thought that in the United States Congress, a resolution condemning anti-Semitism in Congress would be turned into a Cholent Minestrone resolution. Cholent Minestrone resolution. So what should have been a clear-cut denunciation of an anti-Semitic diatribe became a victory. And I want you to know that I subscribe, having devoted my half a century of my life, religious freedom, human rights for everyone in different parts of the world. So I subscribe to the advisory of CARE, leading Muslim organization, who hailed Wednesday as a historic moment. The halls of power bowed to the pulse of the street. An end to the double standards. Why? Because we managed to organize. I stand with Ilan, silencing the criticism of Israel as an apartheid policies. Friends, to me, this is a turning point. It's an awakening call. It's a time not to be silent. And if there could be, if we can organize, if our adversaries are able to organize an Ilan, we stand with Ilan, American Zionists should wake up and we can also do the same thing and do it. I'm not the main speaker, but I had to share with you the pain. Holocaust survivor, having encountered this onslaught here in our blessed United States. But before Purim, how appropriate. Let me read to you. Mordechai trying to convince Esther, intervene on behalf of your people. And she's silent. Al tedami benafshech v'imalet beit hamelech b'kol haYehudim. Do not imagine that you will be able to escape in the king's palace when any other way than the rest of the Jews. My message to my fellow Zionists, we have to be the moving engine to instill against pride in Zionism. And as President Macron of France said, anti-Zionism, anti-Israel is a camouflage for anti-Semitism. That's what it is. So we cannot just be silent. That's my message. As a proud Zionist, grateful to Hashem, and we should say it together, Hodel Hashem ki tov ki leolam chasdo, that we are the privileged generation that has seen Israel reborn, our dream fulfilled. We have to stand together and not be silent. So, Ilan, you have a great challenge, and we're with you. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you very much. Rabbi, thank you for the charge. Thank you for setting us throughout your entire career on the right path. Thank you for all you've done and will continue to do for Israel and for the Jewish people. Ambassador Dani Dayan is the Consul General of Israel. He has served with distinction here in New York. But he is not the only ambassador here in New York or the only ambassador here tonight. As many of you know, the American Zionist movement, in partnership with the March of the Living, has had the privilege of escorting, of inviting, of working with, and of being with ambassadors from the United Nations from all over the world who joined us on the 2018 March of the Living in Auschwitz and marched from Auschwitz to Birkenau. They went on to Israel after Yom HaShoah. They went on to Israel to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut. 2 months ago, we took another group of ambassadors from the United Nations, from countries from all over the world, to the Poland Jewish Museum in Warsaw, where we had dinner among the history of 1,000 years of Jewish history in Poland. And the following day, we went to Majdanek in a snowstorm. And arm in arm, we walked into the gas chamber. And we looked up at the ceiling, at the shower heads, and we looked across at the canisters of Zyklon B. To a man, to a woman, the ambassadors from the United Nations, from all over the world, knowing that they are not loved by every country, knowing that they are not loved or even sometimes respected or appreciated for their dedication and their hard work. They came with us to Poland. They came with us to Israel. And a number of them have joined us here tonight. We are indeed honored to have with us, and if I mispronounce, I apologize, Ambassador Daria Kuret from Slovenia, Ambassador Tiboro Tito Kiribatas, Ambassador Max Rai, Papua New Guinea, Ambassador Bisanya Kadari, Albania. And to share a few words with us, Ambassador Ahwe Bona Malwal from South Sudan. Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening. Shalom. Actually, I just want to say to Richard and to her blog, to thank them on behalf of my colleagues. I have been going on these trips to revisit, the history of Holocaust, invited by Richard and the Embassy of Israel. And these visits, I want to say, they do more than what you could do in the halls of the United Nations, because it's you feel it, and it hits home when you are actually go through the steps where the Holocaust happened and how it happened and the people who suffered there. And as the rabbi say, he's a survivor, and it's unfortunate if it's actually the anti-Semitism is raising its ugly head again. It's very unfortunate. It has to be stopped. So I agree with you, Rabbi. Also, we were lucky this time actually to have a few minutes with the Prime Minister, Netanyahu, who came to talk to us. And as you know, Netanyahu had just came from Chad, flying through South Sudan. We cut his flying time. He has to go around to avoid all these countries that will not allow him to fly. So we did a small thing. We cut his visit by just 1 hour, but we were happy to do it. And when we talked to him, I told him that actually next time we want him not just to fly over, but to stop to have a South Sudanese cup of tea. And he said he will do. But actually, he shouldn't be thanking us. We should be thanking the state of Israel, because in the 60s, before we even thought about becoming independent, they're the one who sent some people to go and train us. They sent about 3 people. They walked because they had to come through Kenya, Uganda, and then they went through the jungle. She said she was in Uganda recently, and I told her, why didn't you cross over? But those Israelis officials who came just to see what the South Sudanese were struggling against, they walked. They spent with us 6 months, and actually they created the first landing strip on the dirt, and they start bringing supplies and start training. So actually our independence started with that. So we should be thankful to the state of Israel for us becoming independent now. So what we did for the Prime Minister was just a small token of saying thank you. And I thank you again, Richard, for having us. And the more you do this visit, I can assure you, the more you will see the vote at the UN will change. So keep doing it. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you for your inspiration and for sharing those thoughts. Before I invite Ambassador Dani Dayan up, I do want to take the risky move of acknowledging everyone here is special, but a few special people from part of the family of AZM that has joined us. You've already heard a reference by the Rabbi to Julius Berman, the chairman of the Claims Conference, the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany. We want to welcome him and his wife and point out that he's a former chair of the American Zionist Youth Foundation. We also want to welcome Cheryl Fishbein and her husband Phil. Cheryl is the immediate past president chair of JCPA, the Jewish Council on Public Affairs. We want to welcome Mark Levin, the CEO for the National Conference of Eurasian Soviet and Eurasian Jewry. Is that the right name? I hope I have it right. Correct me. No. I'm outdated, I'm sorry. Thank you. We also want to acknowledge that we have with us Jason Kugel from AIPAC, Political Director, Rabbi Kupfel and Rabbi Joseph Patashnik, the President of the New York Board of Rabbis, and Pinchas Ringel, the Mayor de Blasio's representative here in New York. One more comment, Ambassador Dayan. You know, we talk about Aliyah. It's in our hearts, it's in our kishkas. Some people really do it. My predecessor, Vernon Kurtz, and his wife, Bryna, are making Aliyah shortly after this event. They cannot be with us tomorrow, but they're here tonight. Vernon and Bryna, please. Stand up. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the wonderful Ambassador Dani Dayan.
Thank you so much, Erev Tov. Before I say a few words of greeting, I would like to read the greetings of a friend. March 10, 2019, dear friends, I send warm greetings from Jerusalem to the American Zionist Movement Biennial National Assembly. The people of Israel are profoundly grateful for the support of Jewish communities around the world. The bonds between us are unbreakable, and we will always work to ensure that Israel remains a home for all Jews. Our people's unity is a source of great strength. We must continue to work together to combat the rising tide of anti-Semitism. We must also join together to expose the slanderous lies propagated against Israel and to define anti-Zionism as a new form of anti-Semitism. I commend you all for your dedication and contribution to our common future, and I wish you a successful event. Sincerely, Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of the State of Israel. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבט אחים ציונים גם יחד. There is no more wonderful event for me than to be among Zionists. Actually, Richard, this noon I participated in the mega event of Nefesh B'Nefesh for potential Olim Chadashim. And I told them that as a former Ole Chadash myself, 48 years ago from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I say also to you, there are going to be difficulties, and the most important word for an Ole Chadash is savlanut, patience. But in retrospective of 1, 2, 5, 10, and in my case 48 years, is the best decision a Jewish individual can make. Now, we spoke a lot about, in the last days and weeks, about anti-Zionism being a form of anti-Semitism. Is it, is not? Of course it is. That goes without saying, that denying if you are an anti-Zionist, you either deny the bond between the people of Israel, Am Israel, and the land of Israel, Eretz Israel, and denying a central part of Jewish history, any central part, the Holocaust included, is anti-Semitism. And if you recognize the link and nevertheless you deny the right of the Jewish people to self-determination, for sure you are an anti-Semite. Already great friends like President Macron and Prime Minister Merkel and Prime Minister May said it explicitly. But let's not make a mistake. Zionism is not about fighting anti-Semitism. The fact that anti-Zionism is a form of anti-Semitism doesn't mean that Zionism is all about combating anti-Semitism. Zionism is much more deeper, has a much more wide scope than only combating anti-Semitism. I stand here in front of you as a Jew by peoplehood, as an Israeli by citizenship, and as a Zionist by the deepest of my convictions. And Zionism is not only about Jewish suffering, a way to run away from Jewish suffering. Zionism is much more than that. Zionism is about Jewish redemption, about Jewish sovereignty, about Jewish independence, even if there was not even one anti-Semite in the world. Zionism is not only about giving shelter. Zionism is about fulfilling aspirations, legitimate aspirations of the Jewish people for millennia. For 2,000 years, the groom and the bride that stood under the chuppah, and in the most intimate moment in their lives, instead of kissing the bride, in Warsaw, in Sana'a, in Yemen, or in Buenos Aires, Argentina, they waited for a second and said, no, if I forget thee, Yerushalayim, without knowing that every single one of those grooms and brides, millions of them, were precursors of Zionism. Every single Jew that for 2 millennia, anywhere in the world, in Casablanca, Morocco, or in Ljubljana, Slovenia, prayed for rain in Eretz Israel, and not in the land in which he was sitting, was a precursor of Zionism. Until a gigantic statesman came, Theodor Herzl, a person that appears in the stage of history only once in 2,000 years. In my view, probably Rabbi Schneier, will disagree with me. Usually religious persons disagree with me. They say, where is the Rambam and where is this? In my view, the greatest Jew of the last 2,000 years, Theodor Herzl. Until he converted that yearning into a political movement, then came the moment in which we fulfilled our dream of returning to Zion, of reestablishing our sovereign, independent state in Eretz Israel. And I will conclude by saying that as a Zionist, a realistic Zionist, I often ask myself, do we have in this contemporary Jewish generation an extra mitzvah that is specific to this generation? For instance, there was a generation that had the extra mitzvah to try to save the European Jewry from extermination, and unfortunately, they failed. Probably it was impossible to succeed. I'm not judging. Then there was a Jewish generation that had the extra mitzvah to try to liberate the Soviet Jewry and the Ethiopian Jewry, and Baruch Hashem, they succeeded. Do we have an extra obligation, an extra mitzvah in our contemporary Jewish generation? I think we have two. The first is to make sure that the Jewish state, the state of Israel, Medinat Israel, not barely exists, but exists as a robust, thriving, successful country. And the second is to guarantee the continuity of the Jewish people elsewhere. I said that as we started with Aliyah, I said that as a realistic Zionist that would like to see all of Jews in Eretz Israel, but knows that it's not going to happen immediately. So to make sure that the incredible link that started 4,000 years ago with Abraham and Sarah is not broken, that chain is not broken neither in this generation nor in the next generation of Jews. And I think that it will be a tragedy, no less than a tragedy, if each of the two big Jewish communities of the world, Israel and America, that together we compose something like 80% of American Jewry, of world Jewry. It will be a tragedy if each one of those communities chooses to be responsible only for one of those mitzvot. If Israelis see themselves, we go to the army, we pay the high taxes, we are responsible only for Israel. And American Jews say, we have here tasks to deal with. We see themselves only responsible for continuity of our Jewish life. We need cross. I don't know, cross is not the most Jewish word, but we need cross responsibility. Each Jewish community, each side of the ocean must see itself as responsible for both. Yes, Shomer Achi Anochi. Shomer Achi Anochi, the keeper of my brother. Am I the keeper of my brother in Israel? I am the keeper of my brother as an American Jew. And therefore, I want to commend the American Zionist movement. In a time in which it's horrendous, but the word Zionism is vilified and maliciously misinterpreted, and became in some circles, unfortunately even Jewish circles, a four-letter word. I want to commend the American Zionist movement, its leaders, its contributors, for raising high the flag of Zionism, the flag of Theodor Herzl, the flag of Eretz Israel, the flag of Medinat Israel, the flag of the common bond between Jews everywhere, and to thank you for fulfilling those two contemporary mitzvot that I think that they are the most important mitzvot these days in our contemporary Shulchan Aruch, to do it so excellently, with such a warm heart, and such decisiveness in days in which it's not the easiest of tasks. Thank you so much.